we're just going to talk about these different issues. And first off, my very first question is, what do you feel is the most important thing facing Arkansans right now?
Right now, the cost of living. I think the economy and the cost of living is making it harder for a family already struggling to meet. I mean, can you go in Walmart and walk out without spending $50? You know, the prices have just gotten higher, and it makes it harder. 43% of Arkansans are Alice households. That means even they struggle, work every day, and they still need help making ends meet. So, you know, gas has come down a bit, but still the grocery prices, that's how we tell. And I'll ask my constituents, what is your relationship with your checkbook right now? And that's a driving factor.
Arkansas farmers who grow the crops that feed the world are struggling.
Yes.
The last farm bill goes all the way back to 2018. If you are elected to office, what do you plan to do about the lack of a farm bill? What are your plans to help farmers?
Well, our farmers do need help, and we play a vital part in the world economy. So being able to help them continue to succeed is important. And I think for us, building the relationships with the people, you know, in Washington that make these decisions, your different committees, we have to push this. We have to have people understand how this affects rural America. And that's really important so I think you would start with building those necessary relationships, but Senator Bozeman's done a great job with that as head of the Agriculture Committee. So I think there's some help for our farmers coming.
Okay. Yeah. Farmers in our area are facing bankruptcy. Many who didn't plan to stop are having to stop farming because the bank will not loan them any more money. Meanwhile, the president has given $20 billion to Argentina, and Argentinian farmers are many times in direct competition with the farmers here. Should we be giving money to foreign countries to prop up their economy when people here at home are struggling to hang on to their livelihood?
The short answer is no, we should not. But if our focus is on our constituents, we'll realize that we've got to help our farmers first, not some other country where we're currying favor for whatever other methods and means. We've got to start at home. And I think it's really important that we, as a senator, be able to understand that we build relationships and stress the importance of we're feeding the world, and it's helping our state. We're hurting ourselves because of these decisions made here. For what? Why are we bailing out, sending $40 million out here when our farmers are struggling and losing farms? We got to fix that. I think we got it backwards.
Farmers have maintained over and over and over, they want more markets to sell their crops to. What do you plan to do to change that? How can you as a lawmaker open up more markets to them and improve exports?
I think what we need is, Senate has the responsibility of treaties, and I think what we need to do is understand what's been in the past, where we currently are, and how we can better make those or even new ones to support our interests. And our interests are farmers here in Arkansas, which makes up a huge part of our economy here. So we've got to be able to figure that out. We've got to be able to get that market committee to be able to look at things, and we have a voice there, you know. But if we meet with our governor, and I say we as our congressional delegation, your senators and your 2 senators and your representatives, understand what the Arkansas priorities are, then we put those into our priority matrix. When we go back to D.C., that's what we fight for, and we're all fighting for lifting Arkansas, and farming is probably in the top 2 issues.
There are supposed to be antitrust laws in place to protect the agricultural marketplace, but since 2020, seed expenses have increased 18%, fuel and oil by 32%, fertilizer by 37%, and interest rates by 73%. These input costs are unacceptable when farmers can't pass those price hikes on to consumers. What would you do about this?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would look at that data set and see what those numbers were pre-tariffs and after tariffs and how that affects, because what we've done with tariffs is we made input costs higher for our farmers. Output costs are lower because we can't sell or get it out if we have a good crop. So we've got to be able to look at the entire picture and understand what's driving these issues. And then we address it. But I would stand to think that tariffs, which amounts to taxes in my mind, that we impose on these countries that's part of the reason our inflation is hard for these young people to make it now. But that drives up input costs.
The drought that during this past growing season that we saw in Arkansas hit farmers very hard. Farmers rely on accurate data to protect their herds and qualify for assistance programs, but many times the drought monitor is off and they miss out on data that is very crucial. Why does Arkansas not have a state climatologist?
That's a good question. And I don't have an answer for it. I do not know. But, you know, the science is there. And if we're not putting someone in position to bring that science so we can use it and advocate for our use, I can't answer that question. I think it's something that we should be exploring, because if it's going to help us grow, and even through these unpredictable weather cycles, then I think some predictability helps us plan. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I will find out.
And turning our attention now to health care, do you support maintaining or reforming current health care subsidies to make health insurance more affordable?
Yes. Yes. There are too many people here who can't afford health care even before the subsidies went away. You know, it's still hard to make ends meet when you have to make decisions down there on, I don't know, food, pay my water bill, I need gas. You know, when you have to make those decisions, you don't go to the doctor, you grin and bear it. So yes, I think subsidies help, and we need them. We need them for our most vulnerable and underserved populations in Arkansas, and that's roughly 42 to 43% of Arkansans.
Both Republicans and Democrats are criticized for those skyrocketing costs of premiums, deductibles, and prescription drugs, because both sides have only been able to put short-term fixes in place. What do you believe is a long-term fix to our health care problems?
To answer that question, I have to start with who we elect. When we have elected leaders that care more about their party or their careers than their constituents, then we have this kind of congressional gridlock that we see happening right now. And I think we have to start there. We've got to put some civility back into our politics. We have to be able to, even when we disagree, sit down and have a discussion, because this is not about just our disagreement. This is about those people that we're representing. So I think it has to start there. When it comes to health care, we know the people that need health care. Our rural hospitals are closing because they can't support. When someone comes into the emergency room, you don't turn them away, but somebody has to pay that cost. So when you start stripping funding, you start taking subsidies away, that these medical care facilities can't get paid, then they start to close or they don't treat citizens, and we have an unhealthier population. We've got to be able, as the leaders and the legislators, to work on that and understand that we've got to be able to talk to each other, even in our disagreement, and figure out what's the best answer that we can live with to support our constituents. You're not going to win every one of them.
Americans are hungry.
Yes.
People often say, well, they need to just get a job. In many cases, they have a job and they can't make a living wage. Many households are struggling to afford gasoline, groceries, healthcare, housing, all of this in America. How can people, even well-educated, employed people, not afford the basics in life? Why do you think?
Why do I think they cannot afford? Well, there's a myriad of factors, but what you just mentioned is what I spoke of earlier about the 42%, 42.3% of Arkansans that qualifies or considered low income. the 43% that are Alice households that work every day and still need help making ends meet. I think for us, we've got to understand that. You got to understand the struggle down at the lowest level. And my thought is, I come from there. So my perception is there. But I know that a rising tide lifts all boats. So if we fix these things that help these people live better, reduce future dependence on government assistance, because now we're teaching them at a younger level responsibility, compassion, respect, all those things that are going to help them succeed as they get an education, a public education, which is becoming harder in rural Arkansas because funding is being cut. But we've got a responsibility there at that level, and it helps everyone all the way up, even to your more wealthier people. But we've got to start there, give them a living wage. The MIT wage calculator states that in Arkansas, a living wage for a single person is $19.49 an hour. For a single parent with one child, a living wage is $33.01. What jobs pay those in Arkansas, but particularly in rural America? So those are just the living wage standards based on the MIT wage calculator, and we know we're nowhere near that. Our state minimum wage is, I think, $11, and the federal minimum wage is $7.25. It's been that way for years, $7.25. Who can make it? We need help.
The One Big Beautiful Bill puts a cap on borrowing for higher education. It excluded nursing from the list of professional degrees, and that could limit students' ability to borrow money for their training. Given the demands in the healthcare sector, is that what should be happening? Why or why not?
My question is, why would we do that? Why? We have high schools in rural Arkansas that are struggling, but they have partnerships with local community colleges, and nursing is one of those programs. It's a way to get a professional degree, to be considered professional, because you're saving lives. And that's a pathway out of poverty for a lot of people in rural Arkansas. So why would we do that? Why would we limit them in their ability to progress, to be able to provide a humanitarian service that we so sorely need, not just in Arkansas, but across the whole nation, but particularly here in rural Arkansas? Why would we do that? I don't agree.
Mr. Dunbar, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you. You made this really easy. You got a nice personality. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.